I know you have projects that are scheduled already for the spring, same as we do, but for your tasks as CEO, how far do you tag that out, and how do you mix it all together, Brian? Because with Calendly, I see you're speaking, your calls and everything else, but how do you chop that up early on in the week and for a week or for 2 weeks ahead or however?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that you have to figure out is like what are the important buckets that you have to have no matter what. So
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Blacktop Banter, episode 37. So we're into 2021. We made it, and I have some goals. Everyone sets goals, and sets resolutions and whatnot, not only for their life, but for us business wise. I really try to set these early on. That way, in the downtime that I do have, I'm setting the foundation for us to hit these when we are working and we are doing the labor. And then when we get to the end of the season, we know we accomplished them and we can kind of gear up for the next round. And I think if you ever stop setting goals, you're going to be detrimental to yourself. Never stop doing that for sure. And I'm getting busy with the podcast, with Wiscoat, with a lot of different things. The kids are getting older, so I'm running them around doing all kinds of different things too, traveling all over when I can, which was minimal this year. And it put more focus on Wiscoat, but yet I still love to do everything that I do. And I needed some advice. And I thought, who is the busiest person that I probably know that's similar to me, travels all over, has their hands in a few different things, makes a lot of social media content, and sticks to some kind of schedule, or at least tries to. I'm terrible at it. And I thought of my friend Brian Hess over at the Pavement Group, Morning Perspective. I'm going to miss at least some of the stuff that you do, Brian. So why don't you introduce yourself? Again, I know we did a quick episode when COVID hit, just so we could get some content out there and reassure people. But introduce yourself and what you do and everything you got going on. Keep in mind it's an hour podcast, so I at least want some conversation too,
You got it, man. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And so Brian Hess from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So husband, father of four, president, CEO of the Pavement Group, founder of Top Contractor School. Have a couple podcasts that we do. The Pavement Group has one, Morning Perspective. I do Monday through Friday. This year I'm going to expand that, have some guests. So there's a lot going on, a lot to juggle, try to stay fit, try to stay in shape, try to, do all the things that everybody's trying to do, go to church every week. Right. So, just try to do as much as I can pack in. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Hopefully it's helpful to everybody.
Well, when I introduced you, I talked about us having a conversation, and we had a few, probably more. We were not solely you and I conversations, but we were connected in a lot more ways this year. In Top Contractor School, you let me take a peek in there and meet some guys and get in on some conversations and things. So we were able to interact more. And then when COVID hit, I really wanted to get the listeners and the small guys some reassurance and some advice on what they should do going into 2020 with everything that was going on. So real quick, I just want to kind of see, I talked to Tom Esso, him and I had the same conversation about how things went 2020. How'd it go 2020, the Pavement Group and everything else for you?
Yeah, we crushed it, man. We had a great year, record year. It was just as nerve-wracking for us as it was for everybody else. One of the things I remember saying to my team, early on when it happened, and we might have said this in the previous podcast, but I think it's a good lesson for everybody, is when chaos happens, what do you do, right? How do you react to it? And I really believe that defines a lot of people's year, is how they reacted to it in that first probably 30-day window. And I remember saying to the team, I'd read somewhere a quote that said, man, there's two different types of soldiers in the world. There's soldiers that shoot well at the range, and there's soldiers that shoot well while they're being shot at. And what I told the team is like, we're going to take on some gunfire this year, right? And so how do we navigate that? And what we decided was, we're going to come together as a team. We're going to block out that outside distractions that easily take us over, whether it be the news, just the world's coming to an end, everything's terrible, what's going to happen, there's a recession. And I remember saying to somebody, like, they're like, man, there's a recession. And then I said, man, we're just not going to participate. And that was our mindset. And I can't say that it didn't affect us at all. Like, obviously you get drug into that stuff. Nobody's
Yep.
perfect. But our intention was to stay focused on the task at hand and to do everything that we could that was within our control. So certainly we didn't hit the numbers that we had originally set out to hit.
Right.
But we had massive growth, man. And just we stayed the course. We relied on each other, relied on other people within the industry that had the right mindset, were focused. And anybody listening, man, this will not be the last challenging year that we go through.
Oh, no.
And those people that you are connected to and surrounded by, man, it could not be more important when you go through those times, right? And that, you know, I appreciate everybody that was there for us, supported us, conversations with you, conversations with tons of people, just trying to sort through, man, what are we going to do, right? And how is this going to end up? And, you know, by the grace of God, man, it ended up fantastic for us. So we're looking forward to 2021 and putting 2020 in the books, right?
Yeah, most definitely. And, you know, that conversation that we had, some of those conversations that we had, it was tactical stuff like, hey, get shovels in the dirt. I remember those words coming out of your mouth early on. You're like, dude, whatever you have to do, get shovels in the dirt. That way, at least the door is open. You're not going to lose these contracts and we're going to back out. We did have that happen on one. Thankfully, our mindset was similar. I kind of encountered COVID when someone would mention it or a hiccup, similar to if we had a flat tire or if we had whatever. It was just an obstacle that we were going to get through. It wasn't going to hold us back. I did not mention it at all. Our guys did not have the words come out of their mouth. And you could kind of tell that we were one-track mind, because after that conversations that we were having in March and April, I didn't come up for air. We didn't come up for air until October hit, man, and November. And then kind of I popped my head back up after we'd been working every day. We were underneath the gun. We had a schedule. We had what we needed to do. And I knew first and foremost, we had to get those things done. And that's where our attention had to be if we were going to survive or prosper or whatever we were going to do. And that culture took over. The guys would show up. No one said anything. We just knew that we had to grind and get stuff done and get our tasks done and get back on the Wiscoat side. And I think that mindset and having that team, that conversation like you and I had, and having friends that we could reach out to and talk to was essential for helping that mindset, getting the confidence, I guess, of that mindset. Because if I'm doing it and you're doing it and everyone else we know around us is doing it, if we go down, we're going to go down together. But I know that the group that I surrounded myself with wasn't going to go down without fighting. And as soon as we needed to adjust, we adjusted. I know you guys did the same thing. And, I really did a good job of getting organized after our conversations and the conversations with our group and top contractor school and everything. But then I realized how unorganized I really was. I felt organized, but the efficiency, the way we tackled things wasn't there. So I did implement a few things for us through the year, and my guys stepped up and took over some stuff that made us more efficient. I know you got some team members that are looking to step up here too, and do step up. And I think that's important as well. How can you organize? I talked about you being very busy. How do you organize for efficiency, Brian? Because you're very efficient. I know, because to set this up, I use an app that normally I would text you and be like, hey, Brian, can you pop on? And you'd be like, oh yeah, for sure. This time I was like, hey, Brian, can you pop on? He's like, dude, just click this link, look at my schedule, and let me know what section you want, and we'll make it happen. So I know there's different things and changing as you grow and as things grow, and as I am as well. I want to just know, how do you organize for efficiency? What do you look for? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that people have to realize is that the results, like, look at it from a high level. The results of 2020, for example, whatever you did, how productive you were, how unproductive you were, that is an example of the accumulation of a bunch of days, right? And so what I've tried to study in other people and then implement into my own life is like, how do I get all the orange juice out of the orange, right? How do I keep squeezing that sucker until I get everything out of it? And so I've tried to implement those things that create routine for me. Like, I use the word rhythm a lot when I'm teaching like organization, but rhythm is the key to life, man. Like, if you've ever had that like period of time in your season where you have massive momentum, right? Like you
Right,
feel
right.
like, man, I'm going to close every deal. Everything's going well. The crew's clicking. Everything's kind of happening. It's because there's rhythm in your life, right? Like you're
Right.
feeling like things are just clicking along. And so for me, it starts every week starts on Sunday, right? And sometimes that is Sunday morning. Like if I wake up super early in the morning before the family, I'll sit down and start just, kind of gather my thoughts for the week. What do I have to do this week? What's on the agenda? And I use kind of two different systems as to how I organize myself. So everything goes through my calendar, my electronic calendar, but then I sync that back with paper, right? So I have a planner that I use that sits in front of me every day. So Sunday is kind of to take everything out of the electronic version, start lining it out for the week in the paper version so that I get out in front of that stuff. And then as the days go, like Sunday, I'm planning Monday, right? I'm looking that day ahead. And I've learned to use the app that you use is called Calendly.
Yeah.
Calendly, calendly.com. Anybody can go use it. It's a free app. It syncs to every type of email platform. And so what I've learned, man, is that that time that you spend kind of going back and forth trying to book time with people,
Yep.
it's really difficult, right? And the busier you get, the more difficult it is to find those windows that work for both people. So you're going back and forth a lot. And so now that thing creates the Zoom link for all of my meetings. So like when you sign up, it creates a Zoom link we can use if that's just a regular meeting. If not, I'll jump on somebody else's. But it helps me condense time, right? Where I can fit a 30-minute meeting in where normally I would waste that 30 minutes or I'd be working on something else. And so now I've got that set up, man, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And so a lot of people will be messaging me on social media and say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation. I literally just respond with the 15-minute link, say, let's just schedule an intro call, right? We can spend 15 minutes getting to know each other. If it makes sense, if there's a business opportunity or something that makes sense, then I'll book more time with them. But like, I'm trying to condense that down into the smallest fractions of time that I can and trying to pack as much in a week as I possibly can. So it starts on Sunday. It rolls through, from digital to paper and back and forth. And that's what works for me. And that's what creates rhythm. The second part of that is I'm a firm believer that what you do in the morning every single day will dictate your day, right? And I know, you went through doing 75 hard and
I'm right now again, dude. Yeah.
Getting that rhythm down, right? And so when you get that rhythm, man, you start to realize exactly how much time you have. But it all starts how you wake up and how you start your day is generally how your day is going to be dictated. If you have a great morning, if you have a good morning routine that creates rhythm, you're probably going to have pretty good, solid, productive days. If you wake up and do something different every morning and you're kind of out of whack, some days are good, some days are bad, I would look at what you do in the morning, because the morning is what creates all the momentum for your day.
Yeah. I just mentioned, like I said, I'm back in 75 hard here, and I try to peel everything out in the morning that I can with that program. But I on the way back, I was looking through my schedule, seeing I had a meeting with you. I have another podcast that I'm a guest on here around lunchtime. And I texted my wife. I was like, I got to start getting up earlier. And she's like, you get up early. I'm like, I'm going to start getting up earlier. Like, that's all there is to it. I understand the importance of a night routine, chilling, going to bed, relaxing, putting the phones away. And I go over my planner at night of what I'm going to do the next day. I do plan out my week as well, at least the best I can. And, to get up in the morning, tackle a bunch of stuff, and then be like, I still don't have enough time, is a feeling where it's like, dude, now we need some discipline. And that's another key component. And one of the good things about 75 hard is if you stick to it and really stick to it, it makes you disciplined. But there's also discipline in a lot of different forms as well. So I agree, most definitely. That morning routine, I feel like by 10 o'clock, I feel like I got a ton of stuff done. And it's like, okay, we might as well just keep the ball rolling and get to where we're lunch, get to where we're afternoon. Let me tell you, you sleep a lot easier too when you fill your freaking day with tons of stuff and you get up early. So, you know, you don't have to worry about getting too much rest as far as that goes. I know we were kind of talking about tips to organize your busy schedule, but I kind of want to switch it to the pavement group because that business, our business, the asphalt industry, whether it's maintenance or paving or striping or concrete or whatever the heck we're all doing, it fluctuates. It's not as easy as setting up schedules for a Zoom call or a meeting. So how do you do that? How do you work that in? Because I know you and I do podcasts, we do speaking events, we do whatever. But other people might have different things going on. Maybe they just want to go to the gym. Maybe they want to spend time with their family. Maybe they want to travel, whatever. How do you do that? How far out do you take a look at the pavement group and what you have to tackle? I know you have projects that are scheduled already for the spring, same as we do, but for your tasks as CEO, you know, how far do you tag that out and how do you mix it all together, Brian? Because, you know, with Calendly, I see you're speaking, you know, your calls and everything else, but how do you chop that up early on in the week and for a week or for 2 weeks ahead or however?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that you have to figure out is like what are the important buckets that you have to have no matter what. So, and for me, I've got, you know, every morning I've got the podcast, I've got set meetings at the pavement group, I've got top contractor school calls every single week, I've got time with the family that's scheduled and you know, kind of quarantined off, that's untouchable.
Yep.
And so that's the first thing, man. You got to figure out what are the non-negotiables every single week, right? And so one of the things that we implemented in our company this year was EOS, so Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so that had us set meeting times every single week. So we've got a Monday morning, everybody, all hands on deck meeting at 9:00 Eastern, and then another one on Friday at 9:00 Eastern. And right following that, we have our leadership call for 90 minutes. So 9:30 to 11 every single Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That time is blocked. Then we have sales meetings, operations meetings. Those times are blocked. So like this is why Calendly is so favorable to me, because essentially, and people may have seen this video. Did you ever see the video where the guy puts like golf balls in the jar and then he starts pouring sand in there and all these different, you know, smaller objects? That's the concept of your schedule, is like, and you have to be intentional, right? And so when you ask the question, how far out? As far as I can, right? As far as I can start predicting stuff, man, it's going in my schedule. So an example, I'm going to Oregon to work with K&L for a week in 2 weeks here. And so that time I wasn't exactly sure, you know, what days or what times they were going to, you know, I was going to be working with them. So early on in December, I blocked that week, right? I just took that week and blocked it, because if not, I'm going to send somebody my Calendly link and they're going to look out and they're going to book something in that week. And so I try to get out as much as I possibly can. You know, 3 months. And so in some cases, we're looking at the whole year, right? One of the things that we just did recently was created our content calendar for social media, for our website, for, you know, white papers, what kind of things we're going to publish, what blogs we're going to write. Mm-hmm. So trying to schedule that stuff, it makes the chaos of our industry and running one of these businesses, it makes it more bearable, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're always going to have jobs that go sideways, equipment that breaks down. You mentioned a flat tire. I mean, we see it all in a year, right? And that's very unique, by the way, to our industry. Not everybody deals with all of the different elements, from weather to equipment to all the different variables. There's not many industries that have that many things that can screw you up in a day, right? And so it's more important in our industry than any other for us to keep the controllables controllable, right? So those things we can control, we have to make sure we're intentional about it and being organized. And dude, you might look at me and think that I'm organized, and there are days that I feel like I'm in chaos, right? But I'm working on it. I'm constantly trying to find ways to get out in front of it. And the analogy I use with my team all the time is like, everything in life, man, you want to be proactive and not reactive to as often as you can. And so your time and your schedule is critical when it comes to that statement, because if you are proactive with your time, you're going to find that you have a lot more of it. If you find yourself constantly reactive to everything, you never find that rhythm. Right. And so that, to me, that is the key to it all, is like staying in proactive mode as often as you possibly can. And when you find yourself in proactive mode more often, you feel like you're making progress, right? And you're not being drug around everywhere.
Yeah. And I think early on, if I look at myself, God, you know, this is our 16th year here. So if I look at myself halfway through, I can almost pinpoint the moment where I, you know, it wasn't Calendly and it wasn't this, it wasn't Google Calendars or anything like that. It was a notebook that I just flipped over and labeled every day of the week. I was like, all right. And this was back when the phone would ring, but it didn't ring all the time. And I wasn't getting emails and I wasn't getting messages and everything else. And I would literally start cutting out time for social media and started cutting out time that I knew was going to be downtime, where I would be sitting looking at a phone waiting for it to ring. I couldn't go anywhere because I was waiting for this phone to ring or do whatever. And the efficiency of that era versus now, if I had to go back to that, forget it. It ain't going to happen. But at the same time, I feel a little less overwhelmed versus how I did back then. You know, the stressors are different. The stress now is that I don't have time for the podcast, or I don't have time to go on vacation, or I don't have time for this, versus before, you know, the stressors were like, oh, are they going to keep the lights on? You know, am I going to make the payment on this new seal truck? Am I going to do this or do that? So I think it changes, but at the same time, the stressors change. Therefore, your efficiency has to change. I don't feel any less busy or more busy now than I did 3 years ago. I just feel like I've got more efficient in certain areas, which allows me to expand and spend my time, that valuable time that you were talking about. You know, we're using Zoom right now. And when I first did the podcast and started, I remember you were like, dude, you can record on Zoom. Like it keeps an audio file for you. Like, dude, well, why you're wasting time with this? Because I was trying to go back and forth and record, you know, this screen, my screen, and switch and edit. And it's just little tricks like that, I think, over time. So,
if I could say, man, one of the things I say to my team, I think it's important for your perspective too, is I tell my team, like, the problems we have today are the ones we prayed for 3 years ago.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Right. Like when you were trying to grind it out to get business, now this is the result. Like, your prayers have been answered. Now you're here. These aren't problems.
No.
Right. This is different. Like,
yeah.
These are the problems we prayed for.
Yeah.
Just to keep that in perspective for everybody. And the other thing I would say, man, is it's really important. This is, you know, we're January 5th, we're recording this. Really important for us every year, and I just did this over Christmas break, is to write down everything that we accomplish in a year.
Sure.
You know, to go back, and it's a great tool to be able to go back and Instagram stories and your email and all these things that we have, digital footprints, and kind of walk back through your year. And what that does for you, man, is it puts the progress you're making in perspective, and it allows you to kind of feel like, man, I am making, you know, I'm making progress here. Because a lot of times, you know, we're so demanding on ourselves, we have such high expectations, and sometimes it feels like we're never really making it to where we want to get to. And it's because mentally we keep moving the goal line for ourselves.
Sure.
And that's what you should be doing in your business. But it's also important for you and for your teams, for everybody that's listening, to make sure you're revisiting those things that you did do. Because let me tell you something, what you accomplished in March seems like it was 2018 at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you forget to recognize those things for your team, for yourself, if you don't go back and kind of walk back through that stuff. So I think it's important to realize, because I bet from an efficiency standpoint, you mentioned like, hey, I realized how inefficient I was this year, or, you know, in some areas, and I went back and fixed that stuff. Dude, I did the same thing. I walked back through this year and I'm like, wow, man, we really got a lot of stuff done, right? And before I made that list, you know, we had a good year. I'm looking at, you know, everything on paper, but in reality, you don't realize how much you've accomplished and how much you grew in a year. And that's important for future growth, right? Because if you feel like you're making progress, man, mentally, it keeps you moving forward and it keeps you more focused. It raises your level of confidence, your level of self-worth, everything. And that helps you continue to grow your business, yourself, your team, everything.
Yeah. And I think not only do like the things that you had in place that help you, but the stuff that you, like you said, we adjusted in place at the time when I seen and was reactive to not our work conditions, but the world's condition. That reactiveness with mixed with wanting to survive, that primal instinct, made things happen. And I was listening to a podcast last night doing my second workout, obviously. And it was similar to what we do in our positions. They were talking about our mayors, our governors, people like that, who, when things are going smooth, you don't really think about those people. You're like, hey, I want a good leader, but they've never really had to lead in during a crazy time. And then all of a sudden, this time you realize it matters. Like our governor here wanted to shut everything down in Wisconsin. Thankfully, it was just the inner cities and these restaurants and these bars. And then you look out and see other governors that weren't doing it, but they were having similar numbers with everything else. So it made you think like, man, this is really important. The mayor that, some guy that was, off the wall or whatever in your city that you didn't really were like, yeah, whatever, he's weird, but we're going to work. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, that guy says you can't go to work. And then it's like, oh man, this stuff's really important. And not only is it important, but apparently this guy has to keep us safe and help us provide, and has the say whether yes or no we don't, which in my opinion they don't, but they do what they do, and then it goes wherever, however. But you think about California and LA, and they have a curfew there and everything's shut down. There's all these people and all this stuff. It made me think of myself as a leader, in my business, in my industry, and for my team, and think, which one am I? Am I the one that is going to, early on in the year, I could tell during some of our conversations when we had, when we were in TCS, we might have had 20 or 30 people in our Zoom call. And I could tell by the look on their faces in some people's conversation where they were, whether they were with us being very confident, or whether they were with me kind of confident, but still kind of scared, or they were very scared, or whatever. And I realized I couldn't be anywhere near the backside of that spectrum. And just from those conversations, we had to be forward. And we did the same thing that, like I said, that you did. It's very important, I think, to have learned from 2020, because I don't think it's over. Like you said, there's still stuff coming, and it could get worse, could get better. But for me, to have the mindset that we learned from that, what happened 2020, to gear us up for 2021, I want to have all this stuff in place. I want to be more efficient with these things and put these things in order. What are some things people can do for 2021, Brian? Simple things, whether they're a small contractor or a big contractor, that just kind of can be a routine thing, or can be somewheres to look or to get info from or pay attention to. Do you have anything like that that you can think that you would use on your end? I know you mentioned you're going out to KL. I seen you just come back from Texas as well. I imagine you were doing some business down there, and some of these guys, because it goes all the way down the ladder. If you're a big business owner and a CEO, you have things you need to do. But at the bottom, if you're, of that company, if you're a crew leader, that's similar to being a small business owner in seal coating or
Correct.
whatever, so that guy has to have responsibilities as well that he needs to do. For me, I really need some help with estimating. Like this year, my crew lead took over, and there were estimates that I would put off and put off. Well, I want to not put those off. I want to contract that down. I'm going to have to hire an estimator of some kind at some point. And I can see that from my business perspective, but some of these other guys can't. So for 2021, this year coming up, we survived 2020. I kind of want to do more than survive. If we can do numbers like we did this year, I think that helps gear us up for bigger and better. So I know we got the unknown coming with 2021, but there has to be something that us as business owners, as people, as content creators or whatever, can help implement. And what do you think would be some of those things?
Yeah, I think number one, man, you just hit the nail on the head before you started talking. That if there's one thing we learned from 2020, it's that the whole world, man, rises and falls on leadership.
Yes.
And the way that we feel in the world when there's good leadership versus questionable leadership
Yep.
That matters. And so for me, that's where it all starts is I think, what can I do to be a good leader? And it doesn't matter, by the way, what size company you are. And I say this all the time. There's a lot of guys in TCS that are small startups, from a one-man band, striping company all the way up to $20-30 million companies.
Yep.
And it all, you're right, because that crew leader that has his own crew, maybe he's the striping crew for a large company, that is his own little small business. And the leadership of any company matters. It doesn't matter, because if you're a one-man band, you're leading yourself, and how you coach yourself matters. One of the things that I say to business owners is, like, leadership is kind of like the offensive line in football. If somebody's talking about it, it's usually not for the good reasons, right? And so I think leadership in a large sense, man, this is like the simplest thing. But the more time that we spend actually thinking, right? Again, proactive versus reactive. Like,
Right.
if you can get some quiet time and you can actually figure out, what it is that you want to do, like, what is your goal for 2021? Go to the end of the year and say, like, where do I want to be? And by the way, don't ever do this by yourself. Do this. If you do it by yourself, bounce it off of somebody. Let them shoot holes in it. Let them challenge you. If you were to call me, man, and tell me what your goals are for this year, there's a very slim to none chance that I would accept the number you put in front of me. I would try to push it a little bit further, right? Because I probably believe in your potential more than you do in some cases, right? The level of confidence is different from somebody else than it is in yourself. That's for all of us, right? But when you start to look at the end of the year, and then, so what I do, and we just went through this exercise with our team, is I try to set that goal. And then I say, what does it look like for our team, for our company, if that happens? Right? What are we able to do for our children? What is the financial position of our company? Who can go on what vacation that they want? Like, what are our individual goals, and how do they contribute to the bigger picture? How does that bigger picture contribute to accomplishing these things that we all want? So the biggest thing is, and this goes for everybody, leadership all the way down, tie your goals to emotional things that drive you.
Sure.
Because the reality is, man, if I could tell you to push your goal a little bit further, and I could tie it to something you can do for your children, that I know your children want, or you want for your children, you can easily take your foot off the gas on yourself, right? We all only need so much when it comes to money, resources, whatever. It's easy for us to justify taking our foot off the gas for ourselves. Not so easy, is it, for us to take our foot off the gas for other people? So that's number one, is get clear and intentional on where you want to go and tie it to something emotional. Number two is line up what resources do I need to get, and what do I have available to me right now, and then what is available out there to help me grow. Right. And that could be, man, if you're having a hard time finding new customers, if you're having a hard time on the operations side, man, use the resources that are out there. Contact me, reach out to somebody, because there's so many people in this industry, man, that will help you if you just reach out to them, man. There will be people that give you advice, and the answers are all out there, man. Success leaves clues, right? The people who have tried it, the reason that people become successful is because of how many times they probably failed or learned from somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So no sense in you repeating the same actions as somebody else already figured out. Reach out and use those resources, but get clear on what it is that you want to do. And man, just take massive action. It sounds so simple, and it sounds like, man, that's just a bunch of, conceptual stuff. It works.
Yeah,
it works. If you just work the plan, man, you figure out what it is you need to do, set those goals to emotional triggers that are going to keep you moving when you feel like quitting.
Yep.
And then take massive action, man, and don't stop. Don't quit. Get around the right people. Get around people that drive you, that encourage you, and push you in a positive direction, man. Because that is, if you look back at 2020, man, who won?
Yeah.
Who won were the people that were already taking massive action, that continued to take massive action, that didn't listen to the noise that was out there about how bad it was going to be, or how terrible things were going to be, or how long we were going to be shut down. They just did every single day. They showed up and they did what they needed to do.
Yep.
And if you just show up every day, man, you're proactive, you work the plan, you pay attention, you take enough quiet time to process the things that are happening, and you adjust the rudder, right?
Yeah.
As the seas get rough, man,
Yep.
you can't keep driving the boat the same direction or it's going to flip.
Yep.
But if you pay attention and you got the right people around you and all those things come together, success is inevitable, man. It is inevitable. And that's the truth, man. That is what I've learned over the last 3 years. There's a lot of tactical stuff that goes into it, but the truth is, man, it all starts up here. Every single thing that you've achieved in your life started in your mind. You believe it before it happens. And that has happened for me time and time again, man, where, you know, I look at something, my guy, Mike on my team just reminded me this morning. He's like, he reminded me of something I wrote down with him 4 years ago that actually happened this year.
That's crazy.
And I said, man, I wish it would have happened faster. Right? and he laughed and he's like, yeah, I bet you do. But, you know, at the end of the day, man, I'm telling you, when you set your intentions, man, every single goal that I have is on this phone. It's on the lock screen of this phone. And I look at it every single day, man.
Yep.
Every day. And so those goals are tied to emotions. They're tied to the future of my family, my team, people buying homes, cars, whatever it is on my team, right? What I want for the people around me, my family, my team members, you know, that stuff matters, man. And so that starts, if you're a small company, it starts with you wanting those things for your future employees sometimes, right? But when you tie emotions to stuff, man, it gets really powerful. And there's nothing that's going to stop you from doing it when it's tied to the right stuff.
I had a conversation with a good friend of ours recently.
Yep.
And
dude's a beast.
Dude, it's insane to think him and I 3 years ago where we were and the conversation we had, and when you had a chance to be around your peers, the things that you would say. Now, we chatted about our family, whatever. We talked about business a little bit, but we're talking about completely different aspects versus, you know, before we were like, I don't know, not panic mode, but just like, there's so much to this. I have to figure this out. You know, let me get into this. And
we were still praying for those problems back then.
Dude. Yeah, dude. And now it's like, dude, how do we get more efficient with all these things that we've got now? And, you know, that was where the conversation went. And a lot of it was emotionally attached. We were talking about material things that were goals for us that we both had got. And then the feeling the accomplishment with that. Now it's like, well, I want to get this too, so that I can get this accomplishment. But not only that, we were on vacation with our families, and we had never thought we would be able to do the things we were doing then. So it really is something with emotion being attached to your goals. And I am thinking now about, like you mentioned, my employees, we hit goals that we had set for them. Now we were talking about future hires already. I was with my crew leader, different things. And I want to set that groundwork for them. That feeling that I got from seeing my guys get their goal and believe that what we are doing can produce what they want it to produce. I want that feeling more for more people within our company and things like that. So believing yourself and in yourself and your company is a big thing. If anything 2020 has taught us, my crew, myself at least, is we have confidence. And
nothing's going to stop you other than you.
Nothing can. And now to see my employees before, when we showed up in April and May, and to see the look on their face like, holy crap, to be walking around, you know, like they're Conor McGregor across the freaking Wisco lot, dude, because they had the swag that we knocked it out of the park and we did it. That's a great piece of advice, you know, tying the emotional thing to it. And I don't want to take away from that by asking any more questions. We're getting close to the end. I want people to know where they can find you, Brian, online, wherever, what tags, and, you know, all your links, if we can, or whatever, however you want to do it.
So everywhere is the same username. It's Real Brian Hess, BRIAN.
Right.
Yep. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Clubhouse. Now we're just talking about that before we started. Everywhere, LinkedIn, all the same. And so you can find me there. And for anybody out there, man, that is listening to this, and any of this seems out of reach or unclear or anything, man, feel free to reach out to me, man. I'm happy to schedule 15-minute call with anybody and just, point you in the right direction, man. There were people that did that for me, and it's invaluable, man. And sometimes, I always say this, but if you don't have the confidence yet, or maybe 2020 was rough on you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to borrow someone else's.
That's true. Yeah.
And we've all been there. We've all done it. I just said it, like, there's nobody that calls me, man, that I don't try to push a little bit further. Right. And it's important. It is.
That's nothing recent either, because you and I both spoke at National Paving Expo in 2018, and you were like, what kind of numbers are you looking for? And I'm like, I told you a number, and you're like, why so low? And for me, I was like, dude, that's double what I do. You're like, well, you're putting a ceiling on yourself. Stop putting a ceiling on yourself. You're like, aim a little higher. And you're like, dude, make it this, make it that. He's like, you're definitely going to hit what you want to hit. So why not aim a little bit higher and get beyond it? And, like, that's similar to what you were saying. That group of people you have and the bar you set for yourself is sometimes viewed lower by you than it is by the people around you. So I want to, from in my brain, we go back to that moment, to 2018, and me saying that to you, and you being like, dude, why is that so low? And for me,
did it happen? It probably already happened.
Dude, we doubled way beyond that this year. You know what I mean? So it's not, 2018 seems like you said, forever ago. Dude, it was forever ago, because if I went back to that number, I wouldn't be able to support what we do. So, we're way beyond that. And now that number, that crazy number that you threw out isn't that far out of reach for us. And it's just crazy to think that we're going to be close to that. One thing I've learned during this process of your growth, my growth, our friends' growth, our community's growth, is that with this success comes a greater opportunity to serve the people around us that are important to us, that make things flow and click. Like you said, you get where you have enough funds to do what you want to do and buy what you want to buy or whatever. It really is starting to get over into our community, the people around us, the people that make things click, that are important to us. And I think that if 2020 has showed us anything, it shows us that we care about those people more than we may have realized we did, and that they rely on us more than what we realized they did. And
two people, man, in our company bought homes for the first time this year.
Crazy, dude.
And for the first time in their families. And, it's something that I got asked a question on some interview, another podcast, and they said, something about, success. Like, how do you define your company's success? And I said, man, that's success for me. Like, how many digits are in the bank account is nothing compared to what's the impact of that. And we were talking about, kids before we got on here.
Yeah.
What is the impact on future generations of people that now show their children that it is possible to buy a home, right? To have a steady place to live, to have, that is what this is about, man. This is about building businesses that genuinely are a place for families to exist and grow and feel at home and feel safe and feel respected and encouraged. And, that's what we're all trying to build, man. The money part of it, that's what it takes to be able to fund all that stuff. Right. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make an impact. And,
you're not, if I thought about you and I, we're not conceited, but we like to win. Dude, I love to win. And
dude, I hate to lose.
Dude, I hate losing. But let me tell you, when you have a lot of people around you, and you have people that are within your organization, whatever, when they win, you win more often. You know what I mean? So
bro, there's no feeling this year can take the place of those two people
that's epic.
Purchasing homes.
Nothing.
Epic. Like, I can't remember anything about this year that made me feel better. It still makes me feel that way. It's like, because that is an accomplishment for everybody, right? Yeah. Everybody should celebrate that because our team is a team, man, and we all in some way contributed to that, right? And it's a symbol for me, man. The way that I felt was like, these people feel that our company is a stable place that they can invest and grow roots and buy a home, right? Like, there's something about that that's special. And that is, man, to me, that's what our industry is, right? Yeah. It's a place that, people just want to find a place to call home, and they want to find a place that they can grow. And, again, going back to it, man, it all starts and ends with the environment we create. And that is leadership. And that goes all the way down, right, to the people on the crew that think they're not leaders.
Yep.
You're a leader too.
Yep. And it's funny just to see how things have changed with our peers, yourself, myself, all the people around us, and how we went from just kind of, when our community really started, when social media really started kicking in and doing whatever, we all started to have a piece of it, here. And to see these journeys as we go is the same as it feels in your company when you see people grow and you see them succeed a little bit. So, like I said, that conversation I had with this guy, nothing gave me as much pleasure as seeing that guy's mind go from one thing to a complete different thing. His perspective, he's a sponge, and he wants to learn, he wants to succeed, he's not going to get knocked down. And that's the same thing about all of us as it goes together. We got a few minutes. I want you to have the last words. I want you to say whatever you would like to say, whether it's about 2020 or 2021 or us or the community or the world or whatever. I want some perspective from Brian Hess. I know I get a daily dose of it, but I want some perspective on the podcast.
Man. Number one, man, I just appreciate you having me on here and having this conversation. I hope it was beneficial to people. Every time that I get an opportunity to interact with somebody, whether it's through Top Contractor School or somebody, reaches out for advice, or I get to meet somebody new and they tell me their story, I go back to when I felt, when I was looking up the mountain, and I'm far from where I want to be. But I remember being in that spot and feeling like, man, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? And there's a couple pieces of advice that I would give anybody, whether you're starting out or, you're just smaller and you think you can't, well, that's not possible, or that goal is too challenging, or man, that seems out of reach. It all starts with believing in yourself. It all starts with getting in contact with the right people, getting a seat at the right table. Networking is the most important thing that you can do. You're going to run into people. You're going to network with people that you figure out are not part of your tribe. That's fine. That's part of the process, right? Mm-hmm. Don't let that stop you. If you're networking online and you run into somebody and you get burned or something bad happens, dude, those losses are what it takes to get there. You have to keep going. You have to keep networking. You have to find the next person. And eventually, if you do that day after day after day for an extended period of time, nothing happens. Nothing good is going to happen in a short period of time. And it takes a long time, right, to build something stable, to get this journey of what we're talking about behind you. It takes years, right? Be patient, be impatient with the speed at which you can go, but be patient with the process.
Yep.
Invest your time into connecting with people. You're going to find the right people, man. Eventually, the more public you are, the more you attract like-minded people to you. Those people are going to help you, man. Like we'd be here for hours if I could list all the people that contributed to helping me, get to where we're at and continue to help me constantly, right? Like people call me and ask me to do, like, hey man, would you do this? And I think, my goodness, man, like, would I do it? Like, of course, right? But that's what it takes. And as you invest your time into connecting with people and networking with people, and again, you're gonna meet people that burn you. You're gonna meet people that you think, man, there was a time when I wanted to leave this industry.
Yep.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's normal. Don't quit. Keep going. Keep connecting with people. Find the people that are part of your tribe. It doesn't, because somebody else believes something different than you, it doesn't make them a bad person, you a good person, or vice versa. It means find the people that you click with, that you can borrow energy from, that push you forward, that help you grow. And man, spend as much time as you can with those people when you need it, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to look back and you're going to say, man, I said this to Mike this morning. I said, man, I look back and say, how the hell did we do all this?
Yeah.
Right. And the reality is, it starts with believing in yourself, waking up every day, being proactive, being organized, using your time wisely, and not looking back, like not constantly like looking in the rearview mirror. I'm not far enough ahead. Live in the moment, capitalize on every day, get as much out of every single hour as you possibly can. Don't waste time. If you're on social media, make it productive.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and scroll for no reason. Use it for business. You will look back in years, man, and you'll wonder how it all happened. And you will meet some of the most incredible people that they truly and genuinely make you feel unstoppable. And I am blessed to be able to sit here, man, and tell you that's how I feel. I feel like nothing is going to stop any of us other than ourselves.
Yeah.
That's my best advice.
Dude, I love it. I love it. Well, that was the end of the meeting warning that we had there. So, you know, Brian, I cannot appreciate you being on the podcast enough officially, finally. Dude, there's people I've been trying to get on here for a year, and sometimes I got to juggle it. And that was the basis of us having it here. Dude, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. I wish you nothing but the best. Your team, dude, I'm excited to see what 2021 is going to do for us. You know, there was a moment when I was unexcited to see what 2020 was going to bring us. And after all this, I'm excited for 2021 and what it's going to bring all of us and all your team. On Instagram, I always follow you on Instagram. That's my favorite spot to kind of get some stuff. So it's at Real Brian Hess, but everywhere it's Real Brian Hess.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Brian. Dude, I want you guys to have unbelievable success this year. I'm so excited for your team, and I'm getting to know a few members of them. Eli, I want to give him a shout out because that's Wisconsin boy.
Dude.
Yeah.
Mike's a Wisconsin guy too, man.
Yeah, dude, anybody from Wisconsin, they always
got to be solid, right?
That's true. I mean, if it's going to be Packers versus Steelers in the Super Bowl, I got to have the Wisconsin guys repping down.
Dude, I got a pile of friends in Wisconsin. They're all great dudes, man.
Yeah, Packer fans.
Yeah.
I know.
Let's not take it too far. Let's end this on a positive note.
You got it. All right, guys, we want you to pave it, stripe it, seal it, and kill it. Peace.
Young person,